everyone, and welcome to the Laura Show. I am perhaps looking a little red today, along with my guests here. We were just talking off camera how damn hot it is in here, and we're like, is this what menopause feels like? 'Cause this is what I'm getting right now. So don't worry about the effects. But Katie Muir, thank you for joining me today.
Of course. Happy to be here.
We have known each other for some time now, but I haven't actually seen you in, I'm going to say almost like 17 years, 16 years maybe. Mm-hmm. Met each other in university. We both went to the University of Guelph. And my husband and your husband, obviously at the time not husbands, they were quite close. Yeah. And all our friend group kind of got together, and I guess the rest is history. Yeah. And here we are. I'm not bringing you here to talk about our husbands though. I'm bringing you here today because I've been watching you from afar. And when I started this podcast, we had a mutual friend that said, you know, you got to take a look at what Katie's up to. She just started her own PR company, which is called Heads+Tales PR. And I was like, oh, definitely, like, let me look into this. And having done a little bit of research and stalking you a little bit online, like, you've had quite the career journey. I'm going to do the opposite of what I normally do. Okay. Normally, I start, like, way back. And then we bring ourselves to present day. Today, I'm going to start present day, and we're going to work our way backwards. Okay. So tell me about Heads+Tales PR. Sure. What is it?
Okay.
Tell the audience.
Okay, so we are an integrated communications agency. So we focus on...
I don't know what that means. It sounds good, though.
So we do marketing. We do PR, which is anything that you see in the news has been pitched typically by a PR company. So if you see a product write-up or, I don't know, a new pair of shoes that you'd be interested in, that's often pitched by a PR company.
Okay, so none of this happens accidentally. So when I'm watching the news, for example, I think like the journalists go out and find these sources or find these people to bring on, but that's not necessarily the case.
Sometimes. Okay. Particularly with like hard news, like they're covering like, I don't know,
politics or something.
A flood.
Oh, okay. Right. No one's pitching the flood.
Pitching the floods.
The flood just happened. I get it.
But oftentimes with like products that you see in the news, that's often been pitched by it. Not often. It's almost always been pitched by a PR person, and some other stories too. So, for example, like we just launched the Toronto Holocaust Museum up at Bathurst and Shepherd. So that was all like any news coverage that you would have seen about that would have been done by a PR company, and that one was done by our company.
Okay, so when did you start this PR company?
So we started in January.
Okay, I was gonna say, it's not been around that long.
No.
January, and how does one, okay, I'm just gonna get right into it.
Yeah.
I suspect, because I've now started my own business, I know getting that like first client can be tough. Yeah. How was it like getting your first couple clients?
It was actually easier than I thought.
Come on, girl. We're trying to bring value to the audience here.
Okay, so here's the thing. My business partner Amanda and I had sort of been doing this for 6 years already. So we ran a company that was part of a larger parent company. So it was owned by the parent company, but we'd been doing it for 6 years already. And we are I always say it's a business of relationships, probably very similar to real estate. And so we had a lot of relationships in the industry. We know a lot of clients. Oftentimes, I mean, if you think about client service, clients work at one organization and then they leave and they go work somewhere else. And so we really just put it out in the world. Obviously, there was some work to do, but it came together pretty quickly,
naturally.
Which actually was my biggest fear. I remember leaving and being like, what if nobody follows us? What if we have no clients? What the hell are we going to do? And it's funny because somebody who I know in the industry who had done something similar in the creative side of things, so like in the advertising agency world, was like, that is not going to be an issue. Actually, like all the admin work and the finance and all of the like stuff you have to do in the back end, that's going to be your issue.
That's the issue. Actually running the business, right. Not doing like the creative. Yeah. That's so interesting because people often, you know, they'll keep a sort of a safety net going, right? Yeah. They'll say, okay, maybe I'll start dabbling on this like as a side hustle, and I'll kind of do it behind the scenes. So I still know I have my real job, my full-time job, and then assuming that this other side hustle gets legs, that's when I'll kind of quit and go all in. Is that your strategy, or did you just like quit and start?
No, we had to quit and start, just given contracts and where we were.
So that is scary. You had no safety net.
No. No, there is no safety net. We do have investors, and so it's very well funded. So in that sense, there was a safety net in the sense that we weren't starting off and like funding this, off the side of our desks. So we were very fortunate in that sense.
How did you get funding for that?
Yeah. So we knew if we were going to do it, that we had to have funding. We were like, we are not going to try to fund this, and like take out another mortgage to be able to do this. I'm not that risk averse. We were like, okay, if we're going to do it, we have to do it properly. And so we really just started, it kind of fell into our laps. We weren't even looking to leave. My business partner, we both have kids, but she had very young kids at the time. She was still on mat leave with her second. And we just started to say, like, if we were going to do something like this, let's just talk to people. Let's just have conversations with people. Let's chat with people that have done it before. Let's chat with investors just to see what they think. And so we put together a pitch deck and we started to go to meetings. We met a couple people, and it really was just conversational. And then we met this one investor who we loved, and they came to us and said, like, we love what you're doing, and we actually think that this is a really, great business proposition, and we want to be a part of it. And we were a little taken aback because it happened so quickly. And we were like, okay, well, these offers don't come around very often, so let's do it.
So it's just like you saw an opportunity and decided to go 100% in. I love that. Oftentimes these things can be scary for people, right? But you kind of have to like grab the bull by the horns when you see it, which is sort of what I felt like I did. It was like when the writing is on the wall.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone's telling you to do something, and you'd be great for this. It's kind of like, okay, maybe I should explore it. What was it in your pitch or when you were talking to investors that made them feel you were doing something different? Because there's obviously lots of PR companies, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So what was it that was your unique proposition?
So Heads+Tales is based on heads, which is the people, tales, which is TALES, which is like the storytelling side of the business. So in PR, we talk about ourselves as being storytellers. So the tales side of the business is really the work side. The head side is we offer executive coaching as part of our business. Have you ever seen the show Billions?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
Okay.
I already know where you're going with this because I love her.
Do you?
I don't know her character name.
Wendy Rhodes?
Yeah.
Okay. So Wendy Rhodes is kind of this, I don't know, would you call her like a therapist, I guess?
Yeah.
Psychotherapist?
Yeah.
So she comes in, and these guys who are like investors come in, and they're coming in from their high stress jobs on I don't even know what it's called, like the floor.
The investment floor.
I'm clearly not an investment banker. And she kind of like takes them and puts them back together and helps them both in their personal lives and their professional lives to be better at what they do. So we were in a position, Amanda and I, who's my business partner, had both worked in PR and in the PR agency environment for a very long time. And the agency environment gets a bad rap for being like extremely high stress, extremely high stakes, very demanding, and it can steal your soul a little bit.
Okay.
And
was that your experience as well in the industry? Or
at some, I worked at a number of different agencies. At some, sure, yes. Others were better. But what we were noticing pre or post pandemic is that, we always used to say that like agency was the environment when I started where people would grind it out for a pizza lunch. Like you were like, yeah, we get a pizza lunch on Friday. And post pandemic, people were like, I'm not doing that anymore. I want to put my health and my wellness first, and I want to get something out of this experience. I'm tired of just like constantly working and not getting anything back. And so we looked at it and said, what can we offer in a new agency environment that's different than what we currently have? And Amanda and I had both been working with a coach. Her name is Barbara Morris-Blake. She's amazing. She's like our magical unicorn. And we both got so much value out of it. And we said, how can we offer this to everybody? It shouldn't just be, oftentimes what I find is that executive coaching is given to just the executives. Yeah. And by that point, not that you don't need it, you do, but it's like you need it all the way along. You need it all the way through when you're working through challenges and you're, figuring out who you are. By the time you're 40, like me, you've kind of, you've been in the industry for 20 years. You've had to go through all of those things. So,
you're either completely jaded or you've given up or whatever it is, right?
Maybe figured it out. So we said, how do we give this to people at every level? And so our business model is that people are going to do their best work when they're inspired, when they feel like they have someone who's supporting them through their professional journey, who's giving them that coaching. And so our model is such that, yes, we are a traditional kind of PR agency and we offer integrated communications, but we also offer this executive coaching to our entire staff. So they do group coaching once a week, they do individual coaching, and Barb is, as I said, this like unicorn where she just has this ability to kind of put you back together. And that could be from a professional perspective, could be from a personal perspective, because personal and professional blend, right? Like,
they go hand in
you
hand,
can't, everybody's
often.
Always like, the personal life and professional life, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to swear?
Yes, 100% you are allowed.
It's bullshit. Like, your personal life is going to affect your professional life, and your professional, your personal. So she's really good at just helping people sort through all of those things and giving them, setting goals, working through things that are holding people back. We found people sometimes, I've had folks that I work with that they really struggle with confidence. Mm-hmm. And she is just able to help them blossom and kind of get out of their own way and to really kind of realize their full potential. And that's what she offers.
It's interesting, as you were talking about Billions, I was kind of smirking and laughing because me and my business partner, we both are fans of Billions.
Yeah.
Again, couldn't tell you the names of the characters, but yes, we know of that role quite intimately. We're always laughing because in our office we have one desk, which I work at, and then there's these two, like we call them therapist chairs.
Right.
My business partner sits at one of the chairs and then the other one's open, because usually what happens is someone will come in and sit in the other chair. Before you know it, an hour goes by and we're talking to these people, not just about their business, but more about things that are going on in your life, like what you said about the personal side of things. And we were doing this kind of level of coaching before we even had a training company for real estate agents. We were really happy to help agents and hear them out. And I'm just also one of those people, like, I'll get stuck in the bathroom for an hour if someone's talking to me. I'm not good at like shutting down conversations. I always am trying to be helpful and let people feel like they've been heard. And it kind of blossomed into me being the quasi Wendy for not only the staff on our team. I sit with them once a month and we talk about things that are going on in their personal lives and how we can make work better and things like that. But now we actually offer it to the agents as well as a service. Now we say it's coaching, like real estate coaching, which most people are more familiar with, like an accountability coach, right? Like if you say you're going to make 20 calls, did you make those 20 calls? Because that's what people think they need. But what it comes down to is so much of the confidence.
Yeah.
What I find is really holding most people back is they don't believe in themselves.
Yeah.
They don't believe they can. They come up with every single excuse not to do something, because that's easier than trying something and actually failing, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Were you like that in school? I'm going completely off track now, but I'm curious. Were you like a straight A?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Me too. Like, well, maybe not straight A's, but like, I definitely worked hard, wanted good grades, and I did often sometimes feel the weight of myself, which hindered my ability to do the work. Like, I'd be so anxious. Did you struggle with any of those types of situations?
Not anxiousness, but I will say, starting this business, it's funny because Amanda and I are very yin and yang. She is a like, what could go wrong type of person, and I'm like, here's the list of the 100 things that are going to
that
go
keep
wrong.
me up at night. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And like it, even though I make it seem like, oh, it's all roses now, I was beyond stressed. To actually take the leap for me was really hard. I'm very risk averse. I was like, I'm going to leave a corporate job where I have benefits and a stable salary and, upward momentum, and I can see where my career is going to go, to do something that's scary. And I think for me, it was the fear of it's not that I didn't think it was going to be successful, but just the fear of stepping out of something that felt very comfortable and safe. That is
right. It's not like, what I oftentimes feel is a lot of entrepreneurs, like their backs are so much against the wall. It's, I had $150,000 in debt, or I came here by myself. I'm the immigrant story where I had nothing, so all I could do is work my way out of it.
Right.
But sometimes it's harder I use that term loosely, to start something new when you have something that's so cozy? Because it's like there's nothing wrong with where you were working.
Oh, no, there was nothing. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't cozy in the sense that we worked really hard, but it was safe from a financial perspective, from a growth perspective. You could see your trajectory there. So yeah, it was leaving something that felt
like you had the map planned out, and now it's like the unknown completely.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the catalyst for you? Like, was it a person who pushed you over the edge, or what was it that finally made you say, okay, I'm ready to do this?
It's funny because it was actually, I always wanted to do it, but this is maybe too personal, but we had just done a renovation, a big house renovation. And so it was like I was living in a rental house. It all happened, as I said, faster than we expected it to happen. I had so much going on in my life, and I was like, this just isn't the time right now to be managing this. But it was like, this is in my lap, and I called my dad, and my dad, he can be very direct, and he was like, well, here's the reality. If you don't go do it, Amanda's gonna go do it by herself, and then she's gonna be your competitor. And she's probably just gonna take all of your clients. So you're screwed either way, so you might as well just go. And I was like, well, that's a good way to put it. I guess I should.
Wow, Dad, thanks for the win there. That's so funny. Oftentimes in life we still need our parents to help us make these decisions, but every now and then they come up with these good little tidbits. Speaking of Amanda, the partner, how is it like working with a partner in your perspective? I'm sure there's ups and downs, and we don't need to call her out on anything, but I have a business partner, and very much like you guys, yin to my yang, he doesn't get frazzled by anything.
Right.
I'm frazzled by everything. I get an email, I'm like, oh God, paralyzed. I can't even open it because I fear it's going to be bad news.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people, and he's just like, we'll deal with everything when it comes. It could be literally the worst possible thing that has happened in his life, and he's like,
Right. We are the exact same in the sense that, as I said, she is like, let's take the leap, let's do it. What could go wrong? I will say I would never have done this. I could never be an entrepreneur on my own. I would never have done it by myself. I would only have ever done it with a partner, and really with her specifically. She is amazing. And I think it works for a few reasons. It works because we both have different skill sets. She is very much the let's move quickly, we need to move faster, we need to do this, let's think ahead, let's, expand. And I'm the details. So I'm like, but have you thought about this? But we need to look at this, which makes me sound like
super fun.
Yes, super fun.
I'm sure your parenting style is different too, right?
She probably loves working with me, but it works because she's like, let's move, let's vision, and I'm like, okay, but we need to think of the operations of how we're going to put this in place and things like that.
It's interesting, and I'm gonna mess up the names, but isn't it like Steve Jobs and you two, the boys in the room? You guys know the other guy, Zozie? I don't know.
No. Oh my God, how am I forgetting this right now?
Steve Jobs and his
Amazon.
yeah.
Jeff Bezos.
No. Sorry, I was gonna say the sidekick to Steve Jobs. So there's
no one knows who this is.
Mark Wozniak.
Wozniak. I'm like Zodiac. Wozniak. Yes.
But nobody knows who he is. So does that mean?
But I think that's also me, which is why I have my own show. Because I'm like, damn it,
You're
no.
like, I will.
It's so funny because I think it really does require a team, right? Sometimes people are the loud ones and they get a bit of the praise, which is unfortunate, perhaps maybe for the other person on the team. But that main person knows that they wouldn't be anywhere without the other person, and it goes both ways.
It does, and we always say we would never do it alone. And it's funny because it's not. We always say it's not about the volume of work that you have to do. It's about sharing the mental load with someone. It's about being in that position where something goes wrong, and you're like, or you have to open that email, and you can share the stress. You share the wins. You share everything, and to have someone to be able to do that with. I mean, when we ran our previous company, she was on maternity leave for twice, so 2 years, and doing it alone is hard. It's hard, and you want that person. Every time she'd come back, I'd be like, okay. And it's not that my workload changed or what I was doing changed. It just, you have that person to share the stress with.
Right.
That mental load.
Probably better for the husbands at home that you're not bringing all that shit home to them and then unloading it on them. Have you guys ever encountered a situation where you disagreed on something, and how did you maybe get through that decision making? Like, is it flip a coin? Is it heads or tails?
Yeah.
Pun intended.
We're usually pretty on the same page. I think we can, or one of us can, like, we'll talk it out and we can convince each other sort of one way or the other. We're generally on the same page with things. I think sometimes, as I said, she'll be like, we need to do this now. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, let's think through this and figure out if this timing makes sense or whatever the situation is. But no, we're generally on the same page. And I think we both respect each other. We both have been in the industry for a really long time. And so, oftentimes if she's like, no, I really think we should do this, then one of us.
Yeah, we're kind of like that too, for sure. Like the one who's most energetic or excited about it, someone's usually like, I don't care as much, clearly, so let's just do it and see what happens. And that person usually just wins the battle.
I also think, sorry, I totally interrupted you. I also think, to me, being in a partnership, and this is why I actually think in our industry, you very rarely see partnerships like this, because I find it very ego-driven. And I think you really have to check your ego at the door. Like, you have to sit there and say, this is not about me. This is not about my name in lights. This is not about, me being the star of this article. On both sides, it's about a partnership. It's about what we're doing together, and to be able to say, like, okay, yeah, you are excited about this one, so let's do it. I don't necessarily agree, but here's how I think here's an example. We were doing something yesterday and she had said, I think we should pitch this story this way. And I was like, I don't think that's going to work. And she said, okay, well, what do you think is going to work? And I was like, I hear that you want to get, the Globe and Mail, but I don't think the way you're going to do it is going to work. So what if we do this instead, right? And it's
using like the tactic of like paraphrasing, making sure that you understand where they're coming from, and then maybe delivering another option.
Yeah.
It's hard. I don't think people quite understand. Like, you're right. The load becomes easier. The emotional load and toil becomes easier. Yeah. But you're right. If you have any type of ego around it, it's not going to work. Like today, I invited you on. Now, you could have come back and said, well, we have to have my business partner on because we always do everything in equals, which would have been fine too. We just would have shot it in a different location. Right. But it's about kind of, dividing and conquering, so to speak, as well. Like, if you're always doing everything together as a partnership just to make sure that no one feels like they're being left behind, you're not going to get half as much stuff done. Which leads me to my next point, which is hiring people. You guys have undergone some hiring.
We did.
Talk to me about that. When you first started, just the two of you, or did you automatically say, no, we need XYZ person?
So we started in January. It was just the two of us, but we hired people pretty quickly. So I think our first hire started like mid-February. So we were in business for 2 to 3 weeks. But we did our first new business pitch, just the two of us. And it was a lot of like, you're just going to need to trust that we can do this. We have done it. That our previous agency, we built it from, Amanda founded the previous agency and then I came on after. But she started with 3 people and we built it to an agency of 35.
Oh, wow.
It won Strategy Agency of the Year, which is like the Super Bowl of the marketing awards 5 years out of 6. Like, it was very successful. And we were like, you just have to trust that we are going to be able to do it again. And we are going to do it again.
And I guess when you're pitching something new, there's always the caveat of, we're not this big agency and we're going to put all of our focus and attention on your one file because you're our only client. So you're going to get probably more from us than you would anywhere else.
And more from senior leadership. I mean, I think what happens a lot in other agency environments is you get the senior people in the room when you're doing an RFP, which is, the big pitch, and then you never see them again. Right. And with us, we're very involved in the business day to day.
Hands-on.
Yeah, we're super hands-on,
So how many staff do you have now?
We just hired 11. So we were at 8, and then we have 3 more starting next week. So we're at 11.
So talk about the stress now, not only the stress of yourselves and how am I going to pay my own bills and how I'm going to keep the lights on for myself. It's now how am I going to make sure that my staff can pay their bills and keep the lights on for themselves. Is there a strategy around hiring staff? Do you do you wait until it's absolutely necessary, or do you kind of see like in the future we're going to need this person, so let's bring them on even though they might be twiddling their thumbs for a little bit?
Yeah, we always forecast ahead. I mean, every good PR agency should. You should know sort of what's coming and forecast for that. But it is always a balance of, do you hire them before you need them? So it's a bit of a dance, and sometimes it takes longer than you think to actually find someone. So it depends. You supplement with freelancers if you need to, which we have at times. We always, from a hiring perspective, in terms of, what do we look for? We always hire for fit. I'm a firm believer we can generally teach you how to do all the hard skills. I want someone who is ambitious and excited and inspired and, really passionate about what we're putting out in the world and passionate about working with the team.
So you like in a conversation, you just kind of get to know people and you're like, this person maybe reminds me of myself a little bit.
Yeah.
We definitely hire for personality, we always say, because the skills can be taught, people can learn things. I do find sometimes though, in an interview, everyone comes across as very ambitious in an interview.
Yeah.
And then when you start to work with them, maybe for the first week, they're also ambitious.
Right.
But then I don't know if you've had this experience, but then it starts to dwindle out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I assume, and I can only blame myself, is that me as a leader, I'm not inspiring or continuously inspiring these people. Do you have any suggestions around that?
I think, I will say, our industry is very small. So typically, I don't necessarily always know the people I'm hiring, but I know someone who knows them. So I can usually suss out, are they entrepreneurial, do they take initiative because I know someone that knows them, things like that. In terms of inspiring people, I think that's your culture, right? That's just continuing to, inspire them every day, giving them like that professional coaching where they're looking at, what are the opportunities ahead of them? What's the next step? I think when people leave uninspired, it's because they're just sitting there doing the work and it becomes very transactional. So I once had a coach tell me that, working with people, it's all about care and growth. They need to know that you care about them, not just as an employee, but as a human. Like if they're sick, are you checking up on them? If they have an issue with their partner, are you checking in on them? And then growth, like what is the opportunity? Lay that out for them. So for our employees, every 2 weeks we meet with our employees and we go through their goals.
Like as individuals?
Yep, individuals. Okay. So like each employee has they have team managers, so they'll focus on the work with them, but then they also have like a professional coach, not a professional coach, but like a growth coach that they work with who is a member of our team. So for example, I am the coach for a few people on our team.
Okay.
And you meet every 2 weeks to say like, how's work going? Are there any concerns? But then also, okay, here are your goals. How are you tracking to that? How are we getting you to the next level? This is the next level. What do you think you need to do? What are the opportunities that you want? Do you like writing? Okay, let's give you more writing opportunities. Do you love new business and you thrive in that environment? Great, let's put you in a new business pitch. So like constantly looking for the things that they like to do, that they thrive at, and then also looking at the things that maybe they need to improve on in order to get to the next level.
Yeah, it's interesting because things can change too, right? People might come on board and say like, this is what I'm passionate about today, but they might do that for a handful of years and then it becomes not so passionate to them.
Yeah.
As a leader, you're busy. It's not like your full-time job is it's not like your company's of that size where your job really is to just maybe come up with new ideas and then make sure the staff feels good. You're actually like hands-on doing the work for the clients. How do you juggle all of that? How do you still prioritize your client saying I have a cold, or your client, your staff member saying I have a cold, while you have a laundry list of things that you need to get done that are, not priority over them because they're humans and they're a priority, but they're very, very important and you're probably stressed about it. Like, how do you juggle all that?
That's a good question and I don't know. I think it's just years of being in that situation where you just get really used to multitasking. My philosophy has always been, if you take care of your people and your people leave feeling inspired, excited to work there, their cup is full, they're going to stay, and ultimately they're going to be inspired, and ultimately then the work for the client is going to be better. So I think that people always come first. They are your staff, they are your employees, you have to put them first. So it doesn't necessarily mean I'm, bringing chicken soup to their house, but I might Uber Eats the chicken soup to their house, right? And just checking up on them. Even like something as simple as a quick text is important to let people know, like, I'm thinking about you.
Right. Those small things. And it's funny you brought up the pizza earlier because we were totally doing that pre-pandemic. Like, we would eat together so often and get food for everybody. And that seemed to be something that really helped people because we sat around,
Yeah.
we broke bread together. I do find though, like after the pandemic, that really became something like, and you could see it, like people just didn't really care. In fact, they would come get their pizza and then they would take it back to their desk, and there wasn't a lot of like camaraderie happening. And so we've had to learn that as well, that like, okay, things have changed. You got to like pivot. The world has changed. People's expectations of their jobs have changed. And so I think as a leader, you have to be mindful of those things, right? Like even though you might have dug it out in the trenches and you did it the hard way and everyone else should do it just as hard as you did, like that's just not going to get you to that next level.
No.
Quite frankly, you probably wish that it didn't have to be like that for you.
No, I mean, I'm happy that the next generation is kind of pushing a little bit. I mean, yes, I didn't grow up in that environment, but good for them that they're, you know, demanding more of their employer, as they should.
We're kind of dumb that we didn't,
I know,
quite
like,
honestly. We just like took it. We were like, okay, whatever. This is how it is. Where you know, the next generation, I think, is more like, just because it is doesn't mean it needs to be. And every generation is like that to some extent. Can you tell me about maybe one of the biggest hurdles you've had? It doesn't have to be in the new company per se, but like in your career, in your life, that you're like, this taught me a lot, or this was a really hard time and I persevered. Because oftentimes I'll hear people, they'll come into my office, right? And it's, my spouse is thinking of leaving me. I'm $150,000 in debt.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with alcoholism. Like I've heard everything. Well, I feel like I've heard everything. Is there anything that comes to mind that's like for you, like, oh no, I went through this hard part, and maybe it is work related, but I went through this hard part and now I've come out on the other side, and maybe you can share how you dealt with it, because when you're in it, it doesn't feel like you're ever gonna get out.
Yeah. I think, I mean, there's a few. Obviously, as I said, starting the business last year with the renovation, and I was dealing with some health issues, and it was all colliding all at the same time. And it was one of those, like, I want to start the business and I know it's going to be successful, but I also just like right now isn't the moment.
I'm trying to survive.
Yeah, and I had to just take the leap. And I know I talked about my dad, but I also had a call with Barb to say, like, it was almost like I was so overwhelmed with everything that was going on in my life at the time that I was like paralyzed to make a decision. I mean, you know my husband Mike, but like we just renovated our house and we have no furniture, and he's like, just make a decision on the couch, and I'm like, I can't.
Right. Well, and when you renovate, every little decision, like it's like what do you want the floorboard to look like? What do you want the outlet to be? And you're like, there's so many decisions.
The problem with me is that I also, not to make this about my home renovation, but like I needed to see all the garage doors. I couldn't just look at a garage door and be like, I like that one. I'd be like, well, I have to see them all. But then you have to see all of the, you know, door handles and all of that, times that by a million decisions. So it was an overwhelming time. And when I met with the coach, one thing that she had said to me, and I think it's very true, I mean, to your point about being a good student, I'd kind of always protected myself to say, like, you know, I think I did my best, but I would worry about, you know, did I maybe not do as well on that test? And that kind of pessimism always sneaks in for me. And so I was like, you know, what if this doesn't go well? And what if financially I'm not okay? And what if? And she was like, but think of it, like, you have to flip that mindset. What if this is the most successful agency in Canada? What if you know, are able to sell it in 30 years for this amount of money? What if it is, you know, you are able to build the team to 100? And so for me, my mind always flips to like the pessimistic view of like, here is the list of things that could go wrong. And she was like, you have to look at it as, here's the list of things that could go right.
But when that doesn't come naturally to you, like I'm all about saying, like, lean into your strengths or make things that people see as weaknesses strengths. Yeah. It sounds like you've kind of done that, or have you like just tried to work on it?
I've just tried to work on it, and it's something that I really have to work on, because I automatically go to, here are the things that could go wrong.
Right. And I think a lot of people do that, but they really struggle with paralysis by analysis, right? Like with the garage doors, they might never make a decision, but it's somehow you've managed to just get over it.
Well, my husband was like, I have a $4,000 bike. Pick a garage door. We need a door. I'm like, okay, got it.
So sometimes just circumstance helps. When you were in school, what did you go to school for?
Oh, I went to school for psychology. Okay, right. And I was like all the way down that path. I did my thesis. I applied for a master's. I was ready to go do my master's. I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. And then at Guelph, I saw a woman in the clinical psychology program walking with like a 3-year-old, and she was pregnant. And she was like, yeah, I'm in the clinical psychology program. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be in school and have 2 children. And, you know, you have to go to school. You're becoming a doctor. You have to go to school for a really long time. And so I freaked out. I moved to Australia for a year.
So somehow that you were able to make a quick decision on.
That I was like, this is what I'm doing. I was like, I'm not doing it. And
so you had like this like moment in your life where you're like, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
Moved to Australia. What'd you do there?
Just
Hung
screwed
out.
Around.
Beach time.
Yeah. I lived in New Zealand and Australia, so I just traveled around with friends, and then
Why PR then? Like, how did that come to be?
So my job in high school, I worked for the city of Toronto, and the role that I did had a lot of sort of customer service, managing issues, calming folks down. And so I just felt like it was natural for me. Like it was something that I very naturally, just the role that I took on. It wasn't a PR role. I wasn't in PR at the city, but it was just the role that I ended up kind of getting thrust into. And so I was like, you know what, I think that this could be a good career path for me. And it was great. And then I came back from Australia, and I went to Humber as a postgraduate program. So I went to Humber, and the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
When you started applying for jobs, what were you looking for in a PR agency?
That's a good question.
Or were you just like happy to get a job?
I mean, I was just happy to get a job. But through the Humber PR program, you have to do an internship. It's part of the schooling. And so it was partially just everybody has to do an internship, but it's the best way to get into the industry. I knew I wanted agency. Like in the world of PR, you can kind of go agency or client side. So client side is obviously like you're just doing PR for one company and you're kind of like deeply immersed in that company. In an agency environment, you have a number of different clients and you're doing PR kind of for all of them. And I knew that I wanted the agency side of things because it gives you the opportunity to kind of try different things on for size. It gives you the opportunity to be like, I'll try healthcare PR and maybe I'll try tech PR. Like I did PR, I was a ghostwriter for IBM's like health division when I first started in PR. So you get to try on a bunch of different things.
You get to learn so many different industries.
And I think it's a good way to start your career because you get to try things on for size and be like, oh, I hate that. You know, oftentimes people think like, I just want to work in beauty PR, and then they work a day in beauty PR and they're like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And then they end up doing
none of the
different.
sexy things ever are.
They
like I worked at,
are.
I don't know if you know this, I interned at Holt Renfrew when I was trying to get into fashion, and I was like, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to be like Jennifer Aniston for Friends. And then I like worked 11 months and I was like, this is awful. Like, this
it's never what you expect.
It's never what you expect. So it's ironic because, and I also think as people journey through life, like those things seem sexy and attractive, but they also don't necessarily have as much meaning to just the general people. Like when you work on something like with the Holocaust victims and a monument, museum.
Yeah, the Holocaust museum.
That's important.
Yeah.
You know, that has legacy and that has staying power versus saying working with a beauty brand that's inevitably going to switch trends.
And listen, I think working on both is really valuable for your career, and working on a beauty brand can be really fun. I always say to people, everybody's always like, I want to work on, BMW and like the flashy brands. And when you get to a certain point in your career, you realize you just want to work. It's the client. It's not the brand. It's the actual person that you're working with. Do they value partnership? Do they value you as an extension of their team? Because you do need to work really collaboratively with them. So it could be a beauty brand. It could be BMW, or it could be the Holocaust Museum, or it could be like, I don't know, chicken farmers of Ontario. Like, you know what I mean? It could be anything. It's really about the person that you're working with and how they, the type of PR they want to do. Do they want to take a risk and do something that's a bit more, pushing the envelope and, involving social media versus something that's very traditional that might be a little bit harder to secure results. It's really about the person you're working with and less about the brand, in my opinion.
As like an average person that can't probably afford a PR agency, what would be your advice to them? Like, what should they be doing? Maybe they're running a small business or they're a real estate agent. and they're like, look, I don't even have money to hire an assistant, and that's certainly what I would do first over a PR agency.
Yeah.
What should they be doing on their own? Could they be doing on their own? Should they be doing anything? Like, I really don't know the PR space personally, so I'm kind of asking this selfishly.
Yeah. I mean, I think the number one thing if you're, a small business is you really need to know who your audience is. Because I think a lot of people, even some companies will say like, I want to do PR and I want to get into the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail. Does your audience read the Globe and Mail? Is your audience, Gen Z fashion lovers or beauty lovers? If that's the case, I mean, maybe they are reading it, but that's not where you need to be. You need to really understand who is your audience, what are they reading, what are they consuming, what, who on social media do they follow, and really understanding that to then say, okay, how am I going to get in front of those people? So, if it is fashion lovers, then, from a publication perspective, maybe you want to be in Elle or in front of, a really big fashion influencer doing a collab.
So what, do you just call up Elle? Like, what do you do in that regard? Or call up the Globe and Mail and pitch your idea?
Yeah, anyone can pitch. I mean, there's obviously like tricks to doing it, and it does come with relationships, which obviously is the benefit of a PR agency because we have those relationships. You can, I think, or it's also, as you talked about, like putting yourself out there on social media, but again, really understanding who your audience is and understanding if I'm putting this out into the world, you can boost anything on social media. You can boost it to a very specific audience. So understanding, again, who is your audience and who are you making content for?
Oh, I like that. Very important. And we obviously talk a lot about social media on the show. I do a lot of content around social media because it's free for the most part. I mean, you don't have to boost stuff.
Nope.
You can get people who follow you naturally, organically. So, it's a good place to start. You were talking before, like starting in the agency, where do people start? I think if you haven't dabbled in the social media realm, like that's probably the easiest, cheapest way to get your foot in the door. And then I think, you mentioned the people you know. It's so interesting. When I started this show, I was like, who am I going to even have on my show? And I thought of a short list, certainly, of women, and you were one that came very quickly to my attention because Kevin brought it to mind. But, I've started now to realize by having my friends on, because we were laughing, so you guys don't know this, but the Jessica, who was on the show, who owns the Lavender Farm, Purple Hill, she was talking about working for a PR company, and it happened to be with Katie back in the day, and we didn't even know that connection until you came here. And so it's so funny. I think people underestimate their own network. Like, I have now realized, I'm like, holy shit, the women in my own personal network are so smart. They're so hardworking. They're so bright. And, you start to lean on those people. You get information from people. People are like you, coming here and sharing, and starting to maybe dabble in that space. That might be an easy road to segue into PR or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Like, look in your own network.
It's funny that you say that because when you asked at the beginning, I feel like we're coming really full circle here.
That was intentional.
You're like, that was planned. You asked, was it hard to get clients?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why it was easier than I thought it was going to be, was the relationship. So what I have found is, throughout our careers, Amanda and I have tried to just go out of our way to help people. When, if somebody calls us up and they're like, hey, I'm not saying that they're going to call us up and be like, we need you to do this free campaign, but, I just need some PR advice, or I just need to, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? Does that make sense? Can I have a 30-minute call with you? And, we've done that throughout our careers. I'm always happy to talk to people. I'm always happy to, listen and give some advice. And what I realized after the fact is we started our own agency, and the number of referrals that were coming to us, we got a really big, I can't say who, but a really big celebrity alcohol brand come to us and say, hey, we want to work with you. We were recommended
because of a referral?
By this person.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, wait, who is this person? And then I looked her up and I was like, oh, I gave her advice 2 years ago because she needed some help, and she sent them this review that was glowing and amazing, and I was like, oh my gosh. And she was like, she's the best in the industry, and I was like, it was 1/2 an hour 2 years ago, and those things multiply, and it's getting you in the door in ways that you don't even realize are
Yeah.
going to get you in the door.
Sometimes people will not give the time to
100%.
help other people.
Yeah.
They're so focused on themselves, understandably so. We're all just trying to survive,
Yeah.
keep our heads above water. But I often advise my real estate clients, like, you need to be the advisor for
Yeah.
people. And they'll say, yeah, but I need to get deals done and that's going to take an hour. And I'm like, that hour could be the very thing that turns them into lifers with you, like lifelong
Absolutely.
clients,
Yeah.
as well as the people who refer you. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting that you put this person out of mind. You didn't even remember, like, who's this? What's
Yeah.
going on? But because of something that you get, like, you give, and then you have the right to ask kind of down the line for
Yeah.
help. And karma, right? That shit goes around.
Absolutely.
Have I not touched on anything? Is there anything that you think tells the story that we haven't brought in clarity to? And if not, maybe some last piece of advice that you could give people who are either struggling with their career,
Yeah.
or thinking about making a career change, or they're leading a team and they have no clue how to build culture. Like, I'm going to leave the floor to you. I like putting people on the spot.
You are
Wherever
putting me
you
on
want
the
to take
spot.
us to close this off.
I think I've talked about how I'm risk averse. I'm like the clutch your pearls kind of gal. And I think you always say, like, when you always give the advice of, like, starting a podcast, you're like, just start and see where it goes. And I think I think I would give the same advice. Like, really, what's the worst that could happen? It doesn't work.
Well, you have a list.
Yeah, I have a list.
But you're right. Ultimately, it's what doesn't work.
It's okay. If it doesn't work, how is that going to impact your life? Could you just go back into the industry? I mean, in my industry, could you just pick another agency and work for them? Go find another job in PR? Yeah, you could. So
Yeah.
I think just taking the leap and trusting in yourself, trusting in your abilities, and being in a position where you are not always comfortable and safe. And that's hard for me, but I think
Especially the older we get. I
yeah,
feel.
and especially when you have more responsibilities. I have 2 kids. I have youth hockey to pay for, which is basically
Not cheap.
Yeah, it's not cheap. So when you have those responsibilities, you start to think about, it's more than just me. It's about supporting a family. It's about supporting my kids. It's about giving them a certain quality of life. And then you start to, my mind starts to spiral. I think, yes, there's a lot of things that could go wrong, but if you really believe in yourself and you know that you have what it takes, you're not going to fail. You won't let yourself
And even if
fail.
you don't believe in yourself, also, I always say, like, on your deathbed, if you look back and you didn't take that opportunity,
yeah.
I just feel like that would
Yeah.
crush me inside.
Yeah.
And you want a life that feels worth living. Like, let's say you have no legacy. I have no kids personally. So it's like, what is it going to be when I'm 110 lying there saying, like, that was a good life? And I think
Yeah.
it's taking those risks and those opportunities. And I'm going to call out my mom here at the end because it's my parents' 42nd anniversary
Wow.
today. But my mom used to always say to me when I'd get super stressed about grades and marks, and she just kept asking me, so what? So what? So I would say, well, what if I fail this test? And she'd say, so then what? Like, so what? What
Right.
happens? And I would say, well, then, I don't graduate high school on time. And then she'd say, okay, so what? And then,
Right.
well, then I don't get into university on time. So what? Well, then all my friends start their careers before me.
Right.
So what? And she used to just take me down this path until, like, honestly, I'd be like, I have nothing left to
Yeah,
say.
you're right.
And then you realize, like, half of it's all bullshit, and you're really just the reason that you're not doing it.
Yeah.
And it's not a good enough reason, right?
It's getting out of your own way.
Getting out of your own way.
Yeah.
We'll leave it there. I love that advice. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and thank you, Katie, so much for
you.
being here.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.